Hey guys, this is Vo. I have my Shaw Brother Volume 2 here. This is by Arrow Videos and it collects about 14 films in this second release. Um, so it actually is a great companion to the first release. So this is Volume 1, which is all blue in theme. And then in Volume 2 we have a kind of like a golden orange theme to it. It still retained obviously the same style as the first box set, which is a very long Shaw scope-esque theme where it's like really wide. And personally speaking, as I mentioned in my review of the first box set, I actually don't like the shape of it because you can't really fit this on your bookshelf. It's very wide, and yeah, you just have to display it like this where you're seeing the front cover. I mean, it's fine, but I just wish there was a more compact version of this, and I'm assuming Arrow Videos, which has the license into these films, they will release individual releases as well as the the box set. I believe actually we are only getting 2 volumes. I don't think we're gonna get more, even though the Shaw Brothers have released over 1,000 films in the course of in the heyday, from the 60s to the 80s. And I mean, the Shaw, just to give you a little history, the Shaw Brothers did release film and prior to the 60s, but during the kind of like late 60s era, they really became famous for doing kung fu martial arts film. That's where at the height of their popularity, that's when they were cranking out like 30 films a year just on like the kung fu genre. And that's what they're most famous for. And that's what actually sold. Because the Shaw Brothers also, you have to understand that they are a studio that produced these films on a very large scale. And they, all the actors, everyone from the director to the writers, they're contract worker. They live in dormitories on the Bay in Hong Kong. And they were producing a lot of films. And the funny thing is, they also own movie theaters, and in order to keep the movie theaters, with content, they had to produce as many films as they did, and so for that brief period, even though when I say brief, I'm really talking about like the 60s, 70s, 80s, about 30 years, so 3 decades of films, and they produce over 1,000 films, which is pretty amazing. And like I said, most of it's kung fu, but as you can see with this, the volume 2, we do have some that's not of that kung fu genre, and I'll talk about them and why it's kind of like interesting and unique, because Shaw Brothers really aren't known for horror, but they do have some horror films, and all their horror films are actually pretty good. So if you want to see a horror film, from Shaw, it's actually well worth it. All right, so out of the box, if you're familiar with the first release, you get a book that kind of details the each of the film, and there's a little photos and kind of like like essays written by experts and stuff. And then so in each of the films you can see the cast and the film. And so the actual book, I guess the film book is this case, and where you're presented with the artwork of the film. So this is 36 Chamber Shaolin, and the disc, and then so 36 Chamber Shaolin is actually a really famous one from Lao Kolung, and he in the Shaw Brothers, there's actually pretty much two movie directors that has kind of produced a lot of work in that time period. Lao Kolung, which is, if you see any Gordon Liu film, it's probably directed by Lao Kolung. It's because Lao Kolung adopted Gordon Liu as his kind of like grandson, and so he had him star in every one of his movies. 36 Chamber Shaolin is it's a long movie. It's kind of like an origin movie where it's really a training movie. The whole film is Gordon Liu training to become the ultimate monk from the 36 Chamber of Shaolin. And what's interesting is in America they released this as Master Killer, and Master Killer did amazingly well. And in fact, actually, the Wu-Tang Clan and RZA and all those guys, they love this film, and they actually referred to Gordon Liu as Master Killer, which I think is just really a bad name. Master Killer is not what this movie is about. If you watch the movie, you understand that it is not about a guy training to become the ultimate Master Killer. It's just it's a bad title, but the film actually spawned two sequels, which we have here: The Return of the 36 Chamber Shaolin and The Disciples of the 36 Chamber Shaolin. Now, I guess in America they were known as Return of Master Killer, and maybe Disciples of Master Killer, but I do not think the third film was actually released in America. You have to understand, towards the end of the 80s, there was Shaw Brothers was really bad about releasing their films in their own country and also in America. So there was very few releases of these films outside of getting bootlegs. So if you have seen these, you probably saw it on bootleg, or as I did, I saw it on Black Belt Theater, which is on a syndicated television that in the United States, and I do prefer these dubbed. For some reason, hearing them speak in a English dub is my preferred way of viewing these, because you have to also understand that when they film these, they actually don't film the dialogue, the live dialogue. They go back and dub in all the voices. That is true for the Mandarin and the Cantonese dialogue in the film. So all you're hearing is dub. It's the same way that they do in the spaghetti westerns, where they do dub it in English and Italian. So watching in English dubbed, I don't mind it. I actually prefer it. And these films are English dubbed. So incidentally, 36 Chamber Shaolin does have a commentary, which I appreciate. Previous release from Dragon Dynasty has a great commentary track with Quentin Tarantino and RZA. This new commentary is by Travis Crawford, and he's all right with it, but he's no RZA, even though RZA is actually a really bad commentator, because all he talks about is how he became a disciple of anyway. As far as these two films, there's no commentary, which was kind of somewhat of a disappointment, because I was hoping for some kind of special treatment. And I was hoping for Arrow Video to collect these three films into a single package, because this really is the star of this set. The rest of the set is more Lao Kolung film. I think Mad Monkey Kung Fu is more like a comedy kung fu. I have to admit that I'm not a big fan of Law Kwalung. He is more comedy. He tends toward comedy. So I'm not actually a fan of comedy kung fu, which I understand. I mean, people love laughing and stuff like that. But for me, I'm more of a serious fan. So I'm actually not a fan of comedy. So yeah, Five Super Fighters. I actually don't know anything about this film. Okay, so Five Super Fighters actually directed by Lo Mar, who I actually have no idea who that is. He's not one of the, I guess, superstar directors of the Shaw Brothers. I mean, Shaw Brothers, like I said, produced so many films with so many directors, but only really two that really stood out, which is Chang Che and Law Kwalung. And I guess you also have, what is his name, Lu Chi Hung, and King Hu, who actually did very little films, but what happened is King Hu did some very successful film in the early Shaw Brothers films, but he left the studio due to kind of like disagreement and maybe restrictions that the Shaw Brothers studio had on his work. And also the same case can be argued for Jimmy Woo Wang, who was famous for creating the One-Armed Swordsman with Chang Che, but left the studio after some disagreement of his last film. He left the studio. He did continue to make movies, but under Golden Harvest and more other independent studios in Taiwan, but not for Shaw Brothers. So Jimmy Woo never really became as famous as some of these other directors and stars. And I guess a lot of people maybe not like Jimmy Woo because he looks like such a baby face. And well, anyway, so Five Super Fighters by Lo Mar. I will actually check it out pretty soon. This actually looks pretty good. I mean, a lot of the titles of the five Deadly Venom, Five Fighters, Five Element Ninjas, etc. The five theme is just recurrent on a lot of these titles. So, all right, what else do we have? We have two classic Chang Che film, Invincible Xiaolin and The Kid with the Golden Arm. These are Venoms film. If you don't know what Venoms films are, it is actually Chang Che did a film called The Five Deadly Venoms, and it was so popular, and people love that film that you start noticing the same actors in all of these Chang Che films. So this it's like a group of actors that work for Chang Che. So when they move on to the next project, everybody just said, "Oh, it's the new Venoms film" or whatever. So in America, they love the Venom stuff. And in this case, these two films are actually very good as well. I love both of them. Invincible Xiaolin, aka what is it, North versus South Shaolin, and aka Shaolin versus Wu-Tang. And I believe a lot of the Wu-Tang brothers, the Wu-Tang Clan, the music group, stole their love for some of these films, like the Wu-Tang versus Shaolin. And Invincible Xiaolin is so good. What had happened, I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's basically these northern Shaolin guys and these southern Wu-Tang guys had kind of a misunderstanding, let's say, and they're forced to fight each other. And both of them, they both display amazing kung fu techniques and stuff like that. And really, it's a no-win situation. And because they're very good, but then they realized that there was an evil guy that's pulling the string and etc. And so they got to fight the ultimate bad guy or whatever. But anyway, it's pretty good. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. Kid with the Golden Arm is pretty good as well. It's the golden arm thing is actually the golden rings around his arms here. So when they say golden arm, for some reason I just imagine the whole hand is golden, but they're just referring to the rings around his arm. This one's a bit of a mystery or something. There's some kind of like robbery, and they're trying to figure out the bandits and stuff. And it's a good one. Lots of great action in that one. Actually, it's been a while since I saw this, but I just remember loving the fight choreographs and stuff like that. So if you like kung fu, these two films definitely will fill your needs. Okay, two more Venoms film. Now, Magnificent Ruffins, I actually don't really love. It's a Venoms film. For a time, I wanted to see all the Venoms film, and so this was one of this film on my list of checklist. And I have to say, I'm not a fan of the Magnificent Ruffin. It's a little kind of like too typical for me. Nothing really stands out. 10 Tigers of Kuo Tung is not as good as well. It's actually one of the later Venoms film. There's a music video that's inspired by this film. So if you watch Get Yourself High, it's like a Chemical Brothers video. They use this footage from this film. I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's kind of like too many characters, I guess. And then I didn't like the lead. I think one of them is it's not this guy. I think it may be this guy here, where I actually didn't like him at all. So maybe that had something to do with my dislike of these two Venoms films, because the lead actors are not my picks for a Venoms film. But yeah, so that ends the Venoms block, I think. Yeah, now we have My Young Auntie. This is kind of like a not typical film of that time period, where it has a female lead, and it's more like a comedy. And again, I am not a fan of the comedy stuff, so I can't really talk too much about it. I do own this film on DVD, but I'm just not a fan of just comedy stuff, and it's I understand the importance, and I actually am glad to have this in my collection, but not one of my favorites, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it. If you like comedy, it's a good one. Okay, Mercenary from Hong Kong and the boxers Omen. We'll get to the boxers in a minute. Mercenaries. All right, so Mercenaries Hong Kong is actually directed by Wang Jing, and it's basically it's in Thailand. I don't think it's a typical Shaw Brothers, where a lot of Shaw Brothers film you have the studio set. So you're gonna see a lot of like non-traditional actors, not traditional, but I mean like not a lot of familiar faces in this one. So, and speaking of which, another Thailand film, I think Boxer's Omen mostly is filmed in Thailand. In fact, actually, let me read. So, I know that it takes place during a boxing match in Thailand. And this is actually kind of like the sequel to Bewitched. So, if you've seen Bewitched, this is actually a direct sequel. It's directed by the same guy, Kwa Chi Hung, who did one of my favorite kung fu film, which he's not known for kung fu, but he did a film called Killer Constable, which I love. And then he did this. He did Bewitched. He did Hex, all the Hex films. And he did The Oily Maniac. And I love all of his stuff. Whatever he directed, this guy's good. I like this guy. And the reason why I said this is the sequel to Bewitched is at the end of Bewitched, this monk fights a woman who turns into a bat at the airport. And that same footage is used to start this film. And so you understand the progression from the Bewitched to this. And both Bewitched and Boxer's Omen is gross. It is disgusting. It is some of the most shocking thing you will ever see in films, and I love it. It's amazing. The special effects are not digital, so they look can be funky, but also the special effects is amazing. I actually love it. I think if you haven't seen it, you definitely check out this film. Check out Bewitched, because those two films are hand in hand, and it's one of those rare Shaw Brothers horror films because Shaw Brothers, they're known for kung fu films, but not so much for horror. But whatever horror that they put out is actually pretty decent. So if you like that, check out Bewitched, or not Bewitched. Check out check out Bewitched as well. But check out Black Magic, which I think parts 1 and 2 is also from Shaw Brothers, and those two films are also amazing as well. And so yeah, and I think lastly the last thing we have is now these two films. I don't even consider these Shaw Brothers film. So like I said earlier, Shaw Brothers actually kind of ended their heyday, I guess, in 1985-ish. They transitioned to TV. So these two films are more, I feel more like television made to movies, but I wouldn't consider them really Shaw Brother umbrella. I do own a Martial Arts of Shaolin. It stars Jet Li, and assuming a lot of you guys have owned a lot of his film, but Jet Li actually didn't really, no one really considered him Shaw Brothers, but in his very early stuff, he did do some production for Shaw Brothers. And so yeah, Martial Arts of Shaolin, and then we have The Barefooted Kid, which is directed by Johnny To. And Johnny To is not a name you synonymously associate with Shaw Brothers. So I feel both of these films are not really Shaw Brothers, even though they're kind of like towards the end of the Shaw Brother era. But, I guess I'm glad to have it in this collection, but these two it feels out of place. I would prefer to have two other Venoms film in this place. Like I would have preferred like Flag of Iron or something, or just a random Chang Che film. But yeah, I think this ends the collection, and then the rest of this is just music from the 36 Chamber Shaolin and Invincible Xiaolin and other films of that period. And the reason why we have this on soundtrack is because they're basically a production music library where you can license out these music. And that's what Shaw Brothers did to save money, I guess. They just licensed the music. And so it's kind of nice that Arrow Videos compiled, a bunch of the tracks that you are probably more familiar from here in the films now on full-length music, song soundtrack and stuff like that. So musically, it's actually pretty awesome. You get 2 CDs of just some music from these movies, basically the soundtrack. So is it worth I think the retail is $175 for the set. I paid $150, but is it worth $150? To me, these films are worth it, but for a casual Shaw Brothers fan, maybe even a casual Kung Fu fan, I'm going to say this might be a little too much for you. So you may want to wait till Arrow Video release some of these titles on separate, releases. That way you can pick and choose which film you want to add to your library. Personally speaking, because I'm a fan of the genre and I'm a fan of Shaw Brothers, I'm going to pick it up anyway. So I'm glad I have it, but some of these choices in this collection I'm not too fond of, but I mean that's fine. I would like to have it in my collection. It's fine, but yeah. But for someone like you who may be a casual fan, I would say wait until they release it on a more budget friendly release. All right, we're gonna get to a bonus in a few seconds. Okay, so bonus section. So Arrow Video actually released two kung fu film single release, the 8 Diagram Fighter and Come Drink With Me. I think what happened is they felt these two films wouldn't fit in these two box sets, so they released them as individual releases. And perhaps also because this one, 8 Diagram, was also licensed to 88 Film to release, and they had just released it prior to Arrow Video, so kind of making this release kind of useless. It does have commentary. I think I don't know who provided the commentary. Jonathan Clement, author of A Brief History of China. But perhaps they felt that because it has so many extra features that they would release it as a standalone. Come Drink With Me is a King Hu film. So again, he didn't make too many films, and to package it with the rest of these two box set, I think would have done it a disservice, and kind of get lost in the shuffle, I guess, with all the other releases. And this is somewhat of a special film, even though it's not one of my favorite films. I understand the historic nature of it. I think the commentary was by film critic Tony Rains. And it does feature new subtitles for the English dub. So, but yeah, so both of these films were released as a single, and I think they're like $25. I think they retail for $30, but you can find them for $25, and you can probably find them cheaper if you look around. They do come with slipcases. The later releases might not contain slipcases, so just keep that in mind if you want to get slipcases. I used to be not anti-slipcases, but I used to think, what's the big deal? And then when I couldn't get them on some releases, I kind of got upset because it didn't fit in my collection. So now I'm pro slipcase. All right, so those are the two releases from Arrow. Arrow also did a release of a Golden Harvest film, The One-Armed Boxer. This is not a Shaw Brothers film, so it wouldn't make sense to include it in the Shaw Brother box set. But this has everything that the Shaw Brother is known for, which is great kung fu. Jimmy Woo is the star and I guess director and writer of this film, The One-Armed Boxer. If this film looks familiar to you, it's because it is the first film of One-Armed Boxer versus the Flying Guillotine, or aka Master the Flying Guillotine. And so this is the first film. And Master the Guillotine, Flying Guillotine, is a sequel to this. So if you watch Master of the Guillotine and suddenly you're presented with Jimmy Woo and he's this amazing kung fu artist, well, how did he become that famous kung fu artist? And why are these monks trying to kill him and stuff like that? Well, all that is explained in this first film. How he lost his arm, how he trained to become a fighter of one arm, and why the monks are after him, the monks from Tibet or whatever. You know, the blind monk in Master of the Guillotine. The reason why he's trying to kill Jimmy Woo is because Jimmy Woo killed two of his disciples, these two guys up here. He kills them. And so the blind monk is out for revenge, and that's the setup and the story of Master of the Flying Guillotine. And this is the prequel, I guess, to the first film. This film is great. I think I really understood why Golden Harvest became kind of took over Shaw Brothers, kind of ate their lunch. Golden Harvest also got Bruce Lee. So all those Bruce Lee movies are Golden Harvest film. And so you can understand why Shaw Brothers started to lose to Golden Harvest. And so, yeah, this production is amazing. Jimmy Woo, wow, he is so good in this film. But yeah, so this is the other Arrow video, and that kind of wraps this up. Now, a few years ago, maybe last year, I guess, there was a rumor that the Arrow video secured the rights to 26 Shaw Brothers film. The bulk of it, I think all of it actually, had been released in those 2 releases you saw earlier and these 2 box sets. So I believe they have run out of their Shaw Brothers film catalog. There are a lot more. Like I said, there's over 1,000 films that they can dig and they can pay for to get the license for them. Only 700 is actually available because even though they produce over 1,000 film, a lot of those films are lost to losing the original footage, the film prints and stuff like that. And there's no backup at all, so they've lost those films. But what they do have is about 700 films that they've kind of released as I guess remastered is the word. And incidentally, these 2 Shaw Brothers collection are straight from Celestial Pictures, which did the original masters for DVDs like many years ago. And then I guess they went back and remastered it for 1080p. And these 2 ones, they're special because they're 2K and I guess 4K. I want to say some of it was 4K. But they've been remastered as a kind of like a 2K transfer and a 4K transfer, I believe. On some of them, not all of them, but I think when they were remastering them for the DVD market, they didn't really anticipate the Blu-ray or the much like the HD, So they had to go back and remaster a lot of these films in 2K or 4K. But to me, they look fine, especially if you watch it on Blu-ray. To me, they look almost identical. I've actually watched the 36 chamber in the 4K presentation and the 2K presentation, but because it's downsampled to Blu-ray, they look exactly the same to me. So, I mean, I'm sure it's a little brighter or whatever, but it's not much of a, to me, it's not much of a difference. So yeah, I love films like these. So in this time period, so like I said, I'm very happy Arrow is releasing them for the U.S. market. For a long time, the only other company that was releasing kung fu movies, Shaw Brothers movie, was Dragon Dynasty, and they kind of died. They kind of disappeared. And then 88 Films, which mostly does the UK market, started releasing them in the US because there's such a, I guess, a demand. Not really a huge demand. I know it's very niche. But there was a demand, so they started releasing their films to the U.S. market as well, and now we have 88 films, or now we have Arrow Films to kind of help bring those film to the U.S. market, and it's amazing because I love these films, and I think they should be celebrated, and I feel so bad that say the people of Hong Kong and people in China and a lot of the other countries are not really loving these films or getting releases of these films or celebrating these films, because they should be celebrated. They're really an amazing part of history, and such a special time period. So yeah, I just hope they release more. Like I said, there's a lot of catalog they can dig through. They have the whole One-Armed Swordsman, the whole Alice Fusheng era of films that they can go back and release. I hope they get more licensing for it. I have a feeling that they probably did not sell enough of these to warrant, more catalog. So I feel these two, part 1 and 2, may be the last that we're going to see from Arrow videos, which could be a shame, but like I said, I support them, so I've been buying these. but I feel like a lot of people are gonna sleep on these or they don't really care. So anyway, if you can't afford it, go ahead and buy it. I think it would really help Arrow, lean towards getting more films to release. But if these are the only two that we're ever gonna get from Arrow Videos, I'm happy with them. I mean, there's some really good titles in here, and I'm glad they finally made it over to America. Like the Boxes Omen, for example. There was a DVD release of it from Wells Go, and it was fine. But I mean, to get it in Blu-ray, it is so disgusting. Anyway, yeah. So like I said, a lot of these films previously kind of have made it on DVDs. So if you want the 4K or the Blu-ray version, this is really the only place you're gonna see it. But yeah, so like I said, I hope they release more. I hope they release more weird titles, not weird titles, but more obscure Chang Che stuff that I want in my collection. More of that, please. And then yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. I know this kind of been me rambling on about my love for Shaw Brothers, but yeah, you have to understand that this stuff here, you're not going to find at Best Buy. You're not going to walk to Target and see this on your shelf. This is a very special market, a very niche, very tiny market. People like me who loves Kung Fu films, and I hope there's more of you guys out there, because based on sales and people or companies just not doing well on these releases, I can tell you there's not a market for these. Even though I am demanding it, doesn't mean that everybody else has the same mindset. Or the money, I guess. Because these is expensive. This two things probably like $300. You're looking at basically $300 right here. Alright, thanks for watching.